Hello, welcome to Phoenix Unleashed. I am your host, Shifra Hendry. I have yet another background. In my background, when I was a young kid, my parents in Minnesota, we lived in Minnesota in a nice house on a lake. And in my father's den, there were shelves of books that normally I never would have run into, still haven't. But one of them was called The Wandering Jew. I didn't read it, but I definitely identify with it. So we're wandering on many journeys on our way back to the Holy Land and have been for around 13 months. And that actually brings me to the topic of today. First of all, this is a very special time of the year. This is the month of Nisan, which is the month of miracles. We are right in the middle of the holiday of Pesach, Passover, which literally the word Pesach means to jump, like to jump over like a quantum leap. Excuse me. It also means Pesach, the mouth that speaks. We co-create through our speech. What reality, everything is in the state of quantum superposition, especially now. We're hovering between redemption and exile and redemption. We contain both programs within our beings. So which is going to be our reality? That depends on which we lean into, which we speak into existence. That's a little bright, isn't it? Let's see, what can I do here? Well, I'll leave it up for a little while. Hang on. I got a request not to have something scrolling across the screen, but I'm going to do it for a little while anyway. Just easier. All right. So why did I say that the wandering is the intro to what I want to talk about? So everything that happened in the time of the original leaving of Egypt, of the souls of Israel, and that is what Pesach, what Passover is all about. It's commemoration of that process, of that liberation process. It is the beginning of a macro liberation, of a macro geula redemption that all of humanity is going through now. So you can either look at it as a prototype, a template, a transmission of potential, an inauguration of something that over the macro cycles is going to be far, far, far greater than what happened then. And all of those things are true. And also on a micro level, on a personal level, it's a fractal. So on a personal level, we ourselves are going out of Egypt at all times. Egypt, the word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim, which comes from the word Meitzarim, which means limitations. We're meant to go out of our limitations. So how does that happen? That happens in stages. We are taught that there was an interim period, you could call it a transitional or transformational space that was created between the leaving of Egypt, the leaving of slavery, and the total settling into an acquisition of freedom. In the case of the historical narrative, the entering into the promised land. So there was this interim space in between the past and the future that we're living through now on our own levels. We're living through it now. And that space was the journey in the desert. And the journey in the desert wasn't a one-time thing. It could have been accomplished in a pretty short period of time, months at most, but it took 40 years, and there were 42 journeys. And why were there all these journeys? What does it mean by journeys? That the people were led by the cloud during the day and protected, and there were miracles that were done by the cloud. Their clothes were clean and grew on them. The manna from heaven, the divine communication between Moses and God that was then transmitted to the people. All kinds of miraculous events occurred during that time, and all kinds of challenging events as well that were precipitators for growth and transformation for the people. And it didn't happen in one fell swoop. It didn't happen in one miraculous whoosh of time. It happened in stages. And each of those stages, the people would encamp. They would be guided by the clouds during the day, the cloud of glory during the day, and the pillar of fire at night. And they would told when to set up camp, and they would set up camp totally in its fullness, like the whole thing, no temporary, I'll leave something in the car. Everything got set up completely each time they encamped, and they had no idea if they were going to be told to move again the next day or whether they were going to stay for even years. So this is a journey. What's involved in that kind of journey? So maybe you want to close your eyes, because I'd love to do this a little bit meditationally, because it's so real for us. It's so apropos. It's what we are going through now. And I mean this in the most literal sense. We're literally going through a transformation, a metamorphosis, an awakening. I've said this so many times. I'll say it so many times again. It makes it's all the difference in the world if you understand what's supposed to be happening for you and through you right now. Resistance is futile. Resistance causes symptoms. So close your eyes, if you will, and just think about what happened. The journeys in the desert, what did they accomplish? They accomplished a winding out, an unwinding of the neural patterns that were generated by hundreds of years of slavery. So it takes a while to stop thinking like a slave. What does that mean in our own personal lives? It's a process to stop thinking like a victim, to stop believing that we don't have the powers that we do have, to stop resonating with the trauma of the past and through our fears of it, projecting it and making it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you're in a relationship with somebody who has abused you and that person has done deep, deep transformation in themselves and they love you and they want to open up a new relationship. They want to make up for the past. They want to be completely different in the future, but you keep resonating with the trauma and the fear. It doesn't matter what they want to do. They can't do it because there's a barrier up, there's a fence. So that's the slavery mentality, the slave mentality, or in the words of mystical Torah, that is the gullus mentality, the gullus pnimi, the inner exile that keeps us from seeing what's real now, that keeps us from seeing what's possible now. And that means both within ourselves and in the world around us, keeps us from seeing that there's a new relationship with self, a new relationship with God, a new relationship with miracles, a new relationship with our divine potential, a new relationship with a future that does not simply repeat the past, but is a quantum shift out of it somewhere else, just like slavery in Egypt to the promised land. Two different quantum realities, totally different states of being. Okay, but in between there must be a transition, a transformation that happens in stages. And why does it have to happen in stages? Because that's how we create the vessels. That's how we rewire our system. That's how we learn and empower ourselves and transmute those traumas and those limiting beliefs and those past-based fears that are being triggered on purpose, But who are you going to be in the matter? Who are you going to be with your trigger? What do you want from your trigger? How do you perceive it? Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening again. Doom, gloom, guilt, shame, fear. Try to get yourself to be better out of that fear. That does not work. That's toxic pattern. But we came by it honestly. It was our history. It's not our destiny. So how do we learn to distinguish between what was right for the past and is now toxically wrong, and what was a dream of the future and is now a reality, a potential that needs to be drawn in through our own acquiring of it, through our own, as to use the Kabbalistic terms, asiyata kelim, making the vessels for it. And that's wisdom and that's mastery. That's essential for now. Essential. And you're not going to get it, in your local pharmacy or in the library for the most part. So those journeys in the desert were custom created for the souls of Israel to prepare them. Started with the running away from the Egyptians and being pursued, and the sea, standing in front of the sea, the Red Sea in the bottom of the Egyptian part of the bottom of the Sinai. That fear at that point, the people divided up, the Torah tells us, into four groups that were arguing, let's go back to Egypt, let's make war, let's end it, whatever it was. And one person walked into the sea, Nachshon ben Aminadab, the Nasi, the prince of the leader of the tribe of Judah, of Yehuda, and he walked into the sea till he couldn't anymore. Was it like that? It must have been like that. And said, it must have been like that, because he spoke. And he said, save me, God, because the water has come up to the point where it's going to drown me. I can't go any farther on my human effort. And at that moment, the sea split, not just for him, for everybody. So don't look around the world as is logical and say, there's so many problems here. There's so many people asleep. There's so much corruption. What can I do? How is it possible that all of that will be taken care of? It doesn't work like that. There is a point. to which we need to make the vessels. We need to walk forward one step at a time, following that cloud of glory, that pillar of fire, gaining that wisdom, connecting to source, connecting to God, waking up our own souls, connecting to one another, understanding what our destiny is showing us, is pulling us toward, and leaning into that, aligning with that. And once that point has been reached, it's not up to us anymore. That's when the giant miracles kick in. But even this transformation process is meant to be miraculous. We are not doing anything alone anymore. In this new phase, we are partners with God. In this new phase, we are meant to lean into the supernatural out of our own nature. And that requires, I think I mentioned it last week or the week before, stepping beyond, one step beyond what seems possible for you. Even if it's a little step, when you go beyond that boundary of how you know yourself to be, what you know you can do, what you know you can't do, what you know is possible, what you know is impossible. One little thing, think about something now. What is it that you've held back on, that's come up to your mind? If only I could, if only I would, but I don't know, I'm scared, I'm not comfortable. What if? I don't know if it's right. I feel nervous. I don't know exactly how. I don't know what's going to happen. What's one little thing that has occurred to you, or that will occur to you now, that you could do that would be beyond that line, beyond that wall? Because here's the deal: this instant you take a step beyond that invisible line, you're in the quantum, you're in the miraculous, and your brain is rewiring to that. And that means that more divinity, more divine, miraculous light and power can now become part of your nature. And then there's the next step and the next step. And we can look at Nachshon ben Aminadab, this leader of the tribe of Yehuda, of Judah, that in each step he took, I have not learned this, but it seems obvious that in each step he took, he was going another step into that unknown, beyond the boundary where everyone else was standing. We can't go. Here's the sea. This is our hard stop. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. We must have been betrayed. What should we do? We should have never entered. And he just walked a step. And then he took another 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 step. Until, save me Hashem, ki ba'u mayim ad nafesh. The water's gotten as high as I can have it be and still stay in this body. And it's not required of us to sacrifice in the way, for the most part, in the way that our previous generations did have to do. What's required of us is to change. To truly change the nature of what it means to be a human being, and a human being created in the image of the divine, with divine potential actualized and manifested within the body. So in the 42 journeys in the desert, each one of those represented a stage in the transformation that was required, mistakes being made, challenges being overcome, or in some cases succumbed to, until a whole generation that had the slave mentality actually died out. Well, we've been in this process for a generation now, really heavy on since 1991. So how long are we going to stay in it? And are we waiting? Are you waiting? Are you waiting for something to happen? Something will happen, but it's waiting for you. So what about that? So the journeys in the desert, ultimately in this stage of reality, the journeys in the desert are designed to help us to break through the illusion of the physical. And that's what I really want to focus on in the rest of this live stream. So when God created the world, all of the worlds, actually, the multiverse, what happened was that God had to hide the infinite reality of the only being and the only trueness and the only isness that was everything and everywhere. If you can even use those terms, you can only use those terms, everything, everywhere, after the fact. Because before the fact, there isn't even anything to describe. There's only what is, and that's it, and it's all God. So in order to make space for creation, that had to be withdrawn, concealed and contracted, and a space left for all of creation, all of the multiverse, in all of its infinite complexity and potential. And all of that is happening, so to speak, within a space within God. And God is all there is. So if you're still stuck on any kind of definition or branding, we want to let go of that and rebrand, because this is where we are. This is where we are, and this is what's happening now. So within that isness, within that all-encompassing oneness, there was a space created. It's called the void, the halal. It's called the makom panui, which is an empty space, but it doesn't mean what we think it means. It's not an actual empty space, because where would that empty space come from if there's nothing else but the one? So what it is a space for perception. It's a space for an illusion. Now, our illusions don't have much in reality to back them up, but God's illusions, so to speak, when God creates a perspective, it actually shows up in the spiritual or the physical or both. So it was a space for illusion. What is the illusion? That's something, the illusion of not God, the illusion of what you see is what you get. The illusion is of I am the center of the world, and my beliefs are reality, and my perceptions are reality. What if that's not true at all? What if part of the transition, the transformation that we need to, the metamorphosis that we need to lean into now, that we've just received an incredible new burst of power that never existed before to manifest now? What if that illusion is meant to be busted? What if we're meant to start seeing deeper and deeper and deeper? And I am positive that many people watching and listening to this already are seeing deeper and deeper, already are feeling glimpses of something else. Maybe it doesn't feel as real as, this phone, which isn't so real actually. What are you seeing inside of this computer? We're already in the virtual. We're already in the the perceptual. As real as this cup, maybe it doesn't feel as real as that, but it's actually more real, because truly, although we have physical sensations, we have a sensory system. Kabbalah talks about how the soul enters the body, and it enters and leaves in a constant flow that is way faster than anything that we could conceive of. It's continuous. Leaves and goes back to source, gets new energy, and comes back into the body, revived in its purpose. But the body, because we have the wiring that is our subconscious, I call it the mind of the body, it remains at the age that we left it. It remains with the traumas that we left it with. It remains with the beliefs that we left it with. But what if we could change that? Because even your body is being recreated just like blips on a screen, just exactly like the screen that you perhaps are looking at now. It's not real. Is it pointing you to something that could be real, a real experience? Yes, on some level. It's not real, though. You could actually click your mouse and go to a completely other place, change that reality. This is a really accurate metaphor for what's available, what we need to learn to lean into now, what we need to learn more about up until mastery in order to be doing our job, to be living, as the Rebbe said, with miracles by our nature every day more. So we need to understand that this is just the external facade. Yes, very important. That's, the TV show, that when it shows on the, when it comes out on the screen, there are cameras behind the scene. The actors have lives behind the scene. This isn't their real life. They're complex sets. They're filming, they filmed and now they're broadcasting it as if it's happening now. There's so much going on, multidimensional, infinitely, utterly complex behind the scenes. But the point is that the show should show up on the screen and be realistic and be gripping and be emotional. That's like our lives. That's like the creation of the world. But what? In order for this to happen, we are the living art. We're the characters in the sitcom or in the drama, more likely, as well as the crew and the artists and the set builder. And, God, the only, is running through all of it and all of us. And now in these times, because we're rising to our destiny, we're rising to our future, we're rising to our liberation, it's imperative for us to understand and to connect to what's going on behind the surface, what's going on beneath the surface. And you can do this easily when you do something like close your eyes and ask yourself, where am I really my real self? Not necessarily you're going to get a linear answer, but you're going to feel something. Or what's really happening beneath the surface? Or what am I feeling if I really still my mind, not just in my body, but in my Awareness. What am I feeling? What am I aware of if I just go in, go deeper? Do this now. Or, there are more pointed questions you could ask yourself. We won't go so much into those, but how about what's really happening now? What's being called out from me, from the people of the world, from the world itself now? I want you to really be closing your eyes and asking yourself this. What comes up could be nothing, could be a feeling, could be awareness, could be words, could be images, could be ahas, it could be anything. It could be now, it could be later. There are 5 levels of the soul. Just the surface level, the nefesh, the life force, is enclosed in the blood and distributes aliveness to the body. Then there's the emotional level that is hidden in the heart, but the heart doesn't make space for it as long as the heart is reactive and in survival, because the soul's emotions are, infinite love, infinite confidence, infinite connectivity, infinite divine power, infinite passion. So we need to make vessels so that that part of the soul, the ruach, can settle into the heart and transform all of every challenge you have that propels you in. And here's the thing, every challenge we have propels us outside of the illusion, because the illusion kind of feels like it's breaking down, like, oh my, life is breaking down. The predictability of life is breaking down. So a lot of times it's happening on an individual level in our own lives. I just had a very stressful week before Passover because we were supposed to close on a little stable place after all this wandering. It fell through like a day before. And thank God a friend lent us an empty apartment for a little while. What is that about? But it's all a training process. It's a training process to get through the illusion, to find your reality. Where's your reality? What is real about you? You can close your eyes and ask yourself that question too. Let's do that. What's real? Again, we're not looking for answers from the left brain. Really not. We're looking for a sensation, an awareness, a movement, a feeling that may or may not come out in some word or image now or later. What's real? Who are you really? What are you really here for? And again, if you get anxious to find the answer in your left brain, which means it's already been identified and categorized as like a filing cabinet, the answers we need are not coming from there for the most part. Want to know how to screw a nail into the wall? Okay, you can look it up there. But otherwise, so it's a different use of the mind. It's a different use of the perception. And to do that, we have to become more and more aware. More and more aware. If you meditate, you know this. If you're into energy healing, you know this. But it keeps growing for everybody, no matter where you are, because that's what's happening now. We have to become more and more deeply aware that this illusion is just what's being projected onto the screen. That what's projected onto the screen depends upon what's happening underneath the surface, right? When the crew changes the set, when the script writer changes the script, when the actors ad lib and get some inspiration, the whole thing is going to change. The entire show, what shows up, which I sometimes call the target, that surface level, that's where manifestation happens. That's our physical, also our emotional, our social, our structural, our governmental, our financial, all that stuff. But let's say the body, the physical, that depends on what's happening inside, in those many layers of complex production that are happening in you and around you and in and around our entire world, which is both vast and takes up no space at all. Okay, depending on what level you're looking from. Everything depends on where you're looking from. Everything. This is a huge secret. I'm not going to explain it right now. But just to say that if you look from a different perspective, you will see a different reality. Not only you'll see it, but when you see it, you'll have access to it. At least you can learn to. And that's going to change. Every little thing is going to change what projects onto the screen that you and I are both looking at now. So these journeys that we're going on, over all of creation and ramped up over the last, couple years and ramped up even more now and ramping up more with Nisan and Pesach, Passover. These journeys are designed in order to give our awareness as co-creative beings more and more consciousness, power, opportunity, understanding, wisdom, potential, and all of that and more to actually co-create, shift, change what manifests on the screen. And literally, we're standing in the middle, like I said before, every one of us, we're standing in the middle of between exile and redemption. We have both programs in us. We have the old exile trauma-based program and the redemption miracle-based program. And it's not, again, like Nachshon ben Aminadav and the splitting of the sea. It's not that we have to do the whole thing step by step. How can I build that whole new world? I can't. What's going to happen? No, it's just that critical mass. It's just enough of a connection that one person has to get as far as a person can. Maybe not even that far. And I don't think it has to take much time. I think it's a certain level of a breakthrough in the illusion. And then aligning ourselves with that, deeper reality, deeper reality, that flow. Because also the deeper reality is not static. Physical things say, I'm here and I exist and nothing can exist instead of me. A cup can never become a giraffe. But if the script would dictate that a cup does in fact become a giraffe, that can happen, right? How many times have we seen TV where somebody just, they got killed off and we're all so sad and then they bring them back. They made up a story after the fact, the actor quit, they made a new deal, he comes back, they have to make up a story, a backstory. And then it happens. It would be really, 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 really useful. I'm saying this with the utmost seriousness. It would be really, 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 really useful for all of us to start playing that game. Do we know exactly how it's going to work? How could we? It's the future, not the past. But we bring the past into repetition in the present, or alternately, we bring the future into manifestation in the present. So who are you going to be in the present? And how are you going to see in the present? So all these journeys in the desert, all the uprootings from the previous state of being, I liked it there in, wherever, Egypt, I liked it there in Sinai, I liked it there in, wherever I was. Sorry, you're in movement now, like the child goes through the birth canal. Every contraction takes the child one step farther. It never seems to think it never happens that all of a sudden, water breaks and the baby just flies out. Even in a short labor, that doesn't happen because everything is meant to happen in stages because the process allows us to create the vessels, the kalim, that allow us to hold the light in a healthy way. So it doesn't blow us out of existence. It changes us. And changing ourselves and allowing things to change us, moving with it. Like I say sometimes, letting it move you. That's the order of the day. So I'm going to end with that and wishing you a Moadim L'Simcha. May you have a joyous Moed, this period of time that is all part of the Pesach, Passover holidays, 8 days outside of Israel, 7 in Israel, and very, very special time. So don't waste it. Just remember, we're all in this together. We're going through a birth process. You can either resist it, have the symptoms, have your world rocked, be in fear and panic and anxiety, or apathy and depression, or whatever. Or you can learn how to roll with it. You can learn what it is, and you can actually influence the way that it comes out for your life and for the world. That's what I recommend. That's what I'm here to support. www.gateofunity.com. If you're not signed up for my mailing list, please do so. Please like this video, comment, share. It's a little thing to do. If you enjoy, let's bring other people in so that together we can change things for ourselves and for each other and for the world. Last but not least, I want to just remind you, if you haven't heard, that I'm working on a summit, an online summit to launch at May 15th. It's coming up soon with some amazing healers and speakers from the consciousness movement, and of course, many from the Torah teachers, Kabbalah experts, etc. And the topic is chaos, healing, and world change. That's what it's about. Between every state of being, whatever it might be, and future state of being, between the present and the future, the past, let's say, and the future, because the present really in its essence doesn't even exist, but between every past way of state of being, iteration, version of something, and a future one, there has to be a disintegration or a state of chaos in between. And if you're gonna melt down a piece of ice to turn it into an ice sculpture, you don't want to keep it from melting. You want to melt it down entirely. There are many analogies that we could give for this. The point is we're going someplace. Something is happening to us, for us, and through us, and it's meant to be something that we align with, that we understand and we align with, so that we can really smooth out this process. And anyway, it's not going to happen without us, because that's not what's supposed to be. This is happening, again, for us, with us, and through us. We're partners with God, and we've got to step up to that, or else it's just going to take longer, more chaos. If we resist the meltdown, the blowtorch, or whatever that means. Chas v'shalom. Should be smooth and easy from here on in, but if you could create an equation, I think the level of consciousness and co-creative alignment equals the smoothness and speed with which the process takes place. It just makes sense, right? So if we have to allow ourselves to show up in ongoingly in bigger, deeper, more and more divinely empowered ways, if we're morphing, and if really that's what's happening, the more we resist, the harder is going to be the pressure. The less we resist, the quicker and easier it will be. The more conscious we are about it, and the more we understand it, and the more we can find that new place of relationship, those miracles, that joy, it's real. The more uplifting and amazing it can be. It doesn't even have to be problematic, but it has to happen. It's happening, and it's going to happen. So who do you want to be in the matter, like I keep saying? All right, everybody. See you next time. Chag Sameach, Modim L'Simcha.